Welcome to Beyond the Beard podcast. This is the media arm for the Brotherhood Community Limited, a men's mental health group working very, very hard this year, more so than any other year, to devote ourselves to helping men on their journey through mental health issues. We cover a huge range of topics, but recently we've been delving more into anxiety, depression, multiple personality disorder, toxic masculinity, and many other different things like that. So we take men on expeditions abroad, including psychotherapeutic and psychology practices that we and my business partner have come across together, sort of in our own practice and outside of that in more of a therapeutic setting. So today we have Ben Belcher. Is that correct, the last name there, Ben?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the correct. I can't spin a French Belcher or anything like that on it. It is just it is just that. So
Okay, so today we have Ben Belcher, I'll say now, just to add that bit extra in. Man, me and Ben met on social media. He got recommended to me by a friend, and I've just been going through your website there, Ben. Man, you do some amazing things. I'm super excited to actually have this call because one of the things that I come across was polyvagal theory. I'm sure we'll get into it. But yeah, there were so many things that you offered, and you know what? Like, thank you so much for being here. It really does mean a lot. I'm sure we're going to have an amazing conversation and help quite a few men with, especially all these things that you do cover. So, do you just want to introduce yourself, maybe a bit about what you do, how you got into therapy, how you got into helping people, a bit about yourself?
yeah, no, sure. I mean, I'll get the difficult and tricky bits out of the way. Where I'm currently working as an occupational therapist, and that's the kind of the main, I suppose, thing that I'm registered as doing. And I want to get that out of the way first because it's a complicated thing to really explain. Because we are very as an occupational therapist, we're very kind of tight in what we do, and we're very protective over our identity, and we have our fingers in a lot of different pies. So some of us work in mental health, some of us work in physical health, some of us work in neurological rehab and stroke and things like that, which means that the definition isn't clear. There's
Yeah.
loads of different things that we do. But I'd say that I'd like to say that the thing that I really bring to the table is I kind of help people re-engage and kind of reclaim the quality of life that they feel like could be missing from them. And to kind of go through a little bit of my journey as to how I kind of ended up getting into this position. And I kind of developed a lot of psychotherapy tools along the way. And it's why I have this, people will even say like, I'm not a normal occupational therapist. Like you'll help people engage and kind of build a meaningful life and do the things that they find meaningful. But you think like a psychotherapist, and the background as to how that kind of built up was, I mean, really I can't even say it started when I did a degree in psychology. It started when I was kind of in my teens, so 16 to 18, and kind of being badly bullied at school, and really kind of that damaging my own self-worth and self-esteem. And I kind of say like really what I do, it's based around that. It's based around self-esteem. So it's always come back to this idea of self-esteem and confidence and self-worth in relationships and work and kind of your interest as well. And I was basically kind of in this state where my self-worth was so low that I went out of school and thought that I could never get a job. Like I didn't know how to talk to people, I didn't know how to speak, I didn't know how to really assert myself in any kind of way. And I was really almost curious about, okay, what's different about me to everyone else around me? Why can they do something that I can't seem to do? What's missing? What kind of energetic component is different, and how can I kind of gain that for myself? So that kind of inspired me to go down this route of psychology and as my undergrad at Exeter University, and really exploring all the different aspects of psychology. And like when I say all the aspects, really they covered every single basis. They went from clinical psychology to animal behavior, social psychology, marketing. Like everything was covered in this, which was great for knowledge, but for what my ambitions were, which were to eventually kind of go into some kind of clinical psychotherapy based role, it wasn't a clear-cut path to going from this degree into what I really kind of aspired to do. like I hoped. And I remember them saying in the first lecture that, oh, like only 10% of you will actually go on to doing clinical work. And I remember sitting there going, I'm in that 10%. I'm like, this is what I'm going on to do. So I kind of get to the end of this. A lot of kind of things have been brought up about CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and that being a good kind of path if you want to go into psychotherapy for you to follow. So I tried to go into that and immediately got stuck by this hurdle of them saying, well, in order for you to get the course or the postgraduate course or the master's in cognitive behavioral therapy, you need to do at least 2 years in mental health. And it was like, so in order for me to get into mental health, I already need to be in mental health. It's just like, I can see why there's a bit of a like supply and demand issue of the amount of people who have mental health issues versus kind of the psychotherapists that are kind of able to deliver it. So that kind of led me down a path of, okay, what's the thing that I can get into that I kind of believe in? And at the time, one of the things I was doing to develop my social anxiety or kind of get over my social anxiety was card magic. And by the interests and magicians that I followed at the time, one of them was Darren Brown, and he did a lot of stuff in hypnotherapy.
Yeah, I love him.
So I read his book on kind of hypnosis and hypnotherapy and started to kind of get into how to do that. And my original intention was to use it as a stage performance. And the kind of deeper and deeper I kind of delved in, but kind of went into this, I could see that, oh, wait, this is not a performance. This isn't a trick. This is a therapy. And it's a very powerful one. And I could see where you could almost enhance a lot of elements in CBT that I'd already learned just by bringing someone into a kind of meditation or kind of a hypnotic trance and then doing the change work once they're in that state. So I did a course in hypnotherapy, a diploma in that, and kind of learned how to kind of use those skills to my advantage, which I still use a lot in the meditations that I do. But when I started to kind of go into this kind of hybrid of hypnotherapy and counseling, something just seemed kind of missing. It didn't seem practical enough for what I wanted, and I really wanted to be able to offer a service where people didn't need to kind of sit down for like 20 minutes to an hour and go into this kind of this trance-like state to make changes. I wanted to offer something where people could make these changes on the fly. I started to look around kind of different modalities and styles of therapy and kind of came across occupational therapy, which was literally this idea of as you engage in things you find meaningful, you utilize psychotherapeutic tools at the same time as you're engaging in things. So you're literally using that meaningful activity as a way of rehabilitating yourself, changing your behaviors, changing your nervous system, altering everything kind of around that. And I kind of went on a kind of master's course to do that. At the same time as this, I was doing dating workshops, and one of the people that I came across called Brian Beijing, who he did run a company called Fearless Man. I think it's now called True Courage. Was very much into this concept of embodiment and embodied confidence, which I later learned was polyvagal theory.
Yeah.
And I remember kind of him watching one of his videos where he kind of was talking about this concept of nice guy syndrome and inner work, and how this related to kind of low self-esteem and low self-worth. And I'd been at this point trying to do all these what I'd refer to as like heady-based things to improve my self-worth and my confidence and my self-esteem. So the card tricks, the learning lines, reading books, doing all these things that would kind of, if I executed it all, would make me seem confident, but actually really I was still just as underconfident as I always was. I was just saying pretty things on top of it to kind of dress up, but the actual baseline wasn't there yet. So I remember watching this video and doing this kind of inner work stuff, and he basically kind of says like the way you're processing emotions, the way you're the reason why your self-esteem isn't where you want is basically because of the emotions that you've attached to all these stories, like I'm not good enough, I'm not safe, I'm not loved, all these things that are kind of connected to these concepts, these beliefs, and you need to let go of the emotions that are connected to it. And I was like, okay, so how do we do this? And he did this meditation where you're feeling down into the body, so down into the chest, down into the stomach, down into the pelvis, and you were like creating a space. You're creating like a window or a door around these areas. And as you were doing that, he was then saying, now that you created the space, can you let go of disapproval? Can you let go of shame? Can you let go of any feelings of self-worth that you have towards yourself? And the body did. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. Like, I didn't consciously kind of go, yes, let's push all of this out. The body just did it. And I suddenly had this revelation of, oh wait, all of these feelings of low self-worth that I've trapped in my nervous system, I can just release it by kindly asking my body to do it. And that's essentially what then started to build into, over time, what is now mirror mind therapy, where I combine all these different elements together, where I combine the occupational therapy and the polyvagal work. And what the missing piece was this idea of this psychotherapeutic tool called acceptance commitment therapy. And what really kind of made me seek this out was when I did this meditation, I started to practice it, my life changed in ways I can't really describe. I went from having like really bad gut issues to suddenly these gut issues almost to a degree miraculously healing. They were still there, but it was so much better than it was before. My insomnia just changed overnight, pretty much. Like, I could suddenly sleep just because I felt like I was okay to be me. And then obviously with the relationships I had, the way I showed up at work, that shifted as well. So the one question I then had was, okay, what is this? What is the actual clinical term or kind of therapy for what I've just come across? What's the evidence-based version of this? Because I could comfortably just copy what this person's doing and go into a coaching, just kind of go down this coaching route. But currently I'm not in that position. I'm working for the NHS. I'm in a position where everything I do does need to have a sense of proven evidence base around it. And that's when I came across acceptance commitment therapy. And as I was studying it and going through kind of courses in it, kind of the beginner course and the trauma-informed course and the people-pleasing and perfectionist kind of course around it, more and more I was going, okay, yeah, this is it. This is that missing link. And that I always had the ambitions to kind of slowly kind of build up mirror mind therapy and to help other men with their own self-esteem, their own confidence, and especially in kind of the areas of their personal life in relationships and then kind of their confidence at work as well, which were areas that I typically struggled in myself. And then started to build that up and up into what has now become mirror mind therapy.
Mirror mind therapy, yeah, beautiful name actually. I was thinking about that this morning when I was checking your website. Well, it sounds like you've been on a bit of a journey, really. But I think a point that I want to come back to is, if you don't mind, obviously, is this bullying thing. I experienced bullying myself very severely, but I then also become the bully. So I sort of did like a little switch. So I experienced bullying and then become the bully. And so I've been sort of on both ends of the stick, really. Man, bullying is hard. It's very, very difficult because like my entire life, my ears were like this, right? And I got my ears pinned back. I had an operation, got them pinned back. And then when I got them pinned back, then they bullied me for having them pinned back. So I was like, you can't win this game. Like, there's no, you can't, even when you get rid of the thing that they're then taking the mick out of, you're stuck because then they take the mick out of you for getting rid of the thing that they took the mick out before. So it's like this never ending loop. And I thought, how do I change this? How do I stop this from happening? Because it was causing me a lot of stress, and like I was severely depressed as a kid. Like not just because of that, but that definitely had a impact on that. And then what I did was I sort of stood up for myself. Like had a few fights, let's say, and then then I realized on the other foot, I was like, wow, like people are actually then somewhat scared of me now. So I'm like, this feels amazing. I sort of got like this power trip from actually standing up for myself. So then I thought, right, well, if I bully them, if I then bully people, then everyone will just leave me alone. So it was almost like a defense mechanism for
Yeah.
me. And I love that quote, and it says, people hurt people. You know, it's just like, I was like, yeah, that was me. I was having a very, very difficult time with being bullied. I then stood up for myself, realized how good it felt to not ever be bullied, then bullied other people so that never happened to me again. So people were like somewhat scared of me or like, leave me alone. But then, you know, as hindsight and maturity kicked in at a later age, it sort of ate me alive. You know, like these people that I've severely affected, like growing up, it ate me alive. I thought about it all the time, every week. You know, it would bring me up to tears sometimes, remembering what I did to people, like and how I acted to people. So, fast forward a few years when I come on my healing journey, I sort of realized I'm going to have to apologize to these people to make peace in myself. You know, they might never forgive me, and that's okay. You don't have to. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just saying, like, I'm really, really sorry for what I did. And I did. I went and messaged everybody that I'd bullied and apologized, and only one person replied. And you know, she's now on my Facebook, and you know, we're somewhat friends now. We speak. We actually had a FaceTime not that long ago for a job opportunity. So it was a really, really interesting connection, you know. But like, yeah, how do you think bullying affects people? Because there are a few clients that I have, or even people in the brotherhood, you know. A lot of people have unique interests, or maybe they are unique people. Which I love. I love the fact that people are unique. You know, they should just utterly be themselves and not worry about anything else. One of my friends was putting in the chat the other day about how his son had long hair, and first day of school, everyone was bullying him because he had long hair. And then he come back and he said, you know, Dad, I don't want long hair. And it's like, but why not? It's like, well, these people had said this. So it's like this. Well, first of all, what's your experience? Like, how did you get over that? How did you make peace with that? Have you forgiven them that type of stuff? And then also, if someone's dealing with it now, what can they do to sort of maybe change it, or what can they do to?
Yeah, like with me, I feel like I've definitely made peace with it, and I feel like I wouldn't be who I was or who I am now without those experiences. There's a very big part of me that's actually very grateful for what I experienced, because if I went through school and for the whole experience of that, I felt like I was okay. I felt like I was fine. I would never have actually really done the inner work to uncover what it feels like to truly accept who I am, to truly like who I am, to kind of to go beyond the kind of level of self worth that most people are comfortable with just kind of sitting on. It's almost this journey of going, okay, I'm actually now capable of exploring how much love and acceptance one can have towards themselves just like because of that. And I wouldn't have been driven to do the work that kind of cascaded all those dominoes over to kind of allow me to experience what I can now experience and teach to others. But yeah, I think like when you're going through it, it's incredibly difficult, especially when you're younger, because there's no um like you kind of said, it's like that maturity that's kind of required to really kind of start to develop those inner feelings of self-love and acceptance. Kind of they come a bit later.
Yeah,
And there's like in terms of like its origin, it is kind of based around that kind of that desire for kind of people pleasing, that desire for like I kind of break it down to kind of we have these three primal fears that are kind of rooted into us. So the fear of not being loved, the fear of not being enough, and the fear of not being safe. And
yeah,
with bullying, it's kind of really tapping into like all three of those to a degree, or whichever one you're most vulnerable to. And like I remember for me, it was definitely the feeling of not being loved.
mm,
And it's almost like the more you try to compensate for the feeling that you're not loved. So it's basically this idea of like, well, I need to get this from outside of me, effectively.
Yeah.
The more you're trying to compensate for it, the greater that inner feeling of not being loved actually kind of grows and grows and grows. And sometimes it's like you feel into it, and you can actually feel that that's expanding. And other times you suppress it. So like your example was a beautiful example that you shared, where you kind of flip onto the other side, where it's still being driven from that same that same need, that feeling of, oh, I'm not safe, I'm not enough, I'm not loved.
100%.
And if you start to think, actually really start to understand that the external world that you're trying to project that onto is actually to a degree an illusion. It's that sense of, well, is it an absolute truth that in this situation you're not safe, you're not loved, you're not enough? And what I love about when we look at the psychotherapeutic skills within something like acceptance commitment therapy, you break that down and you diffuse from it. You recognize that actually, no, it's not. Like, what's actually happening is that, like, what form, what structure is that pain taking? Well, it's actually just words. If the structure of it's just words, can we actually let go of that structure? It's like one of the reasons why I've called my company Mirror Mind Therapist, this idea that the relationship that we have with the external world is a direct reflection of the relationship we have with ourselves. So if you're trying to really get something from the external world, you're actually just neglecting the internal relationship. And if something's going not the way you want in the external world, it's actually because you need to kind of look into yourself and where can you find those inner feelings for yourself, which when you get to kind of the age of like 20, 25, 30, it's going to be easier and more obvious to do that, more because you've been banging your head against a brick wall and recognizing that nothing's worked.
Yeah.
But for a kid, it doesn't seem as obvious. It's like I think we're brought up in a way where we intuitively start to think our needs are met externally, because how we've been brought up from the age of like 0 to 16, that's literally been the case. Like everything that we have wanted up to this point have been provided for us externally, not internally. And I think it's why it's no coincidence that a lot of the more severe bullying and severe feelings of anxiety, depression, mental health issues that young men go through happen between those ages, because that's suddenly when that transition happens, where you've reached the ceiling now, you've reached the peak. The amount of external things that can be provided for you, that's hit its ceiling. If you want to go higher, you want to experience more inner confidence, more self-worth, more kind of better connections with people around you, it's about looking internally. And that's really what I kind of experienced as well with the bullying. And like, they weren't bullying, they were like, in theory they were bullying, they were picking physical features, but reality they weren't bullying physical features at all. They were bullying my internal self-worth. And it's kind of really interesting. I've met up with a lot of the people who did used to bully me, and it was literally this kind of night and day thing. After kind of going through this work, they would literally comment on me saying like, you're not the same person anymore. Like something in you has shifted, something in you has changed. What I find really ironic is like actually nothing changed. Like I didn't become someone new. I just revealed the authentic version of me that was already there. I had the courage to display that to the world. And I think when we start to, as kids kind of growing up from like 16 through the 20s into kind of mid 20s, 30s, you start to realize the more authentic you are, the better you feel within yourself, the more okay you are with other people not particularly liking you. And you have this kind of, it's not a sense of like you don't care about people, because that's not the case at all. You always have a sense of, well, I think even more so, the more compassion you have towards yourself, the more acceptance and qualities of non-judgment you have towards yourself, the more of that you can give out to others. But when people start to kind of comment on you and kind of say certain things in a particular way, you very like very clearly start to recognize, okay, actually, no, you're not saying this because you have an issue with me. You're saying this because you have an issue with yourself or your home life or your own circumstances. Something's going on over there. And like I kind of bring, as a kind of example, there's like one of the movies, and literally it felt very similar to this. There's a movie called Limitless with Bradley Cooper in.
Yeah, I
Where
love
he
that
takes
film.
a pill and he accesses 100% of his brain. And like the first time he takes the pill, he's going upstairs to speak to his landlady, and rightly so, his landlady just starts screaming at him because he's behind on rent, he's not getting a job. Like all these things are like these societal things that one should be doing, he's not doing. And as the pill slowly starts to kick in, he goes from this space of being very defensive, being kind of shut off, being in that kind of I just want to hide, people pleasing, like that. Those defense mechanisms start to kick in, and as the pill starts to kick in, he starts to open up, and like he does this, what I call like you surrender into the stress. You let it go. You, rather than kind of trying to block it out like a wall, you let it go through you, and he kind of lets it go through him, and he sees what's underneath it, and that this person's incredibly stressed, not being able to kind of write the essay for their law degree, and he just goes, "What's wrong?" And it completely takes the person aback because it's like that's not what they're expecting the person to say. And it's really similar to like when I've experienced bullying, or it doesn't even register as bullying in my head anymore when it happens. It kind of would have previously, but I can like almost you see the wood through the trees, and like you can see that actually this person is going through some shit themselves. And when you kind of build up that more and more of that internal feeling of self-acceptance, the clearer and clearer that becomes. And sometimes people will be in a space where they're ready to change, ready to talk about it, ready to kind of let whatever is off their chest go. And in other cases, they're not. And like I find with people like in that position, like there's this brilliant quote by Peter Crone where he says like the primary desire for the ego is to be right about itself. So when they're in this state and they're picking on someone, and you kind of point out, actually, I think this issue's there. You're basically kind of you're drilling a little bit into the ego, and it's going to go, no, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. And I've especially kind of having a lack of confidence and kind of going into these kind of dating coaching industries and things like that. That was something that really clearly started to kind of, I suppose, like come out for me. I could suddenly see these people aren't actually confident; they're just projecting confidence. And then whenever you start to poke at that, they kind of immediately go, "No, there's nothing higher than what I'm doing here. This is the peak." And you're kind of going, I don't think so. I think you can feel better. I think you can feel even more like confident, even more self-accepting towards yourself. And there's this point of of allowing yourself to be vulnerable, which I think is the peak level of self-esteem, of confidence, where you start to realize that all the things that you were previously wanting to hide are no longer something to hide at all, but actually something for you to, they're part of you as well, and something for you to kind of, to a degree, present to the world. Like nervousness and anger and things like this are kind of particularly, I think, as men, things we want to push down for kind of different reasons.
Yeah. Look, I really love that take on bullying. Actually, that definitely resonates with me. Anyway, 100%. Mine was 100% this lack of safety. I had lack of safety at home more so than anywhere else. And I felt like I needed to be physical to assert my dominance. So then, when I had then physical things happen to me, I was like, oh, well, I'm safe because I can do it to this person. So it's like this hierarchical almost system of like, yeah, you're bigger than me, but I'm bigger than all of them. So it doesn't matter. It was like a reassurance and safety thing, 100%. And that thing about limitless there, it's funny. I ask a question very similar to that. So I don't know if you ever read the book Atlas of the Heart by Ben Brown.
No, I haven't.
It's a really good book. It talks about like emotions and what's underneath certain emotions. So what I ask now is what's underneath that? Because like people are usually like, I'm like, okay, well, anger is just the reaction. Like, what's underneath the anger? It's usually like fear, to be honest. Like, a very common thing is fear.
Yeah. Like you kind of use that beautiful phrase of hurt people, and like anger is generally an adaptation to hurt. Like
Mm.
there's normally feelings of fear or sadness or kind of doubt or shame kind of lost under the anger. And I think that's really the difference between kind of repressed anger or suppressed anger in this case, where the anger is covering something up, and then kind of healthy anger. And I remember like first when I started to develop that feeling of true inner confidence, that I could suddenly, I could be angry, but it felt positive, or it felt pure. Like it didn't feel like I was angry for this, like for the sake of being angry. It was like I could use anger as a tool. I could use it as a kind of point of assertion, or kind of almost like a spear. And like when I kind of would use it intentionally and use it in a kind of healthy manner around either like people at work weren't kind of pulling their weight, or when your partner kind of does something which you just kind of crosses over the line, and you just kind of sharply do it, and then you get that kind of measurement of her going, okay, no, actually that was a line I crossed. I'm sorry about that. It felt very at first very new. It was
Yeah.
like, because I was so used to before being angry because of the shame I had towards myself, and it would just come out of nowhere. And even now, I still kind of get moments, particularly in the morning when I'm not quite awake, or I've had a stressful day or something like that, where it builds up, and then suddenly the next day there's no milk, and I get really like irate about it. And now, whenever that occurs, I'm just like, but that's not actually real anger. It's not got that. It's not got those healthy, grounded kind of masculine elements to it. It's like you're just like you're angry for the sake of anger. It's like there's like what's actually under it. And I think that's a really beautiful question to ask. Like whenever you're feeling any sense of stress or any anger or anything which just feels like it's come out of nowhere, it's always a really important question to ask yourself of
Mm.
what what is underneath this? What am I not allowing myself to feel? And normally you'll kind of find that it probably is some degree of fear, or some degree of doubt, some degree of shame or guilt. And then again, it's that second step of, okay, that's what's underneath this. Can I make space for that?
Mm. I think that comes perfectly into like this idea of embodiment too. I feel like a lot of somatic exercises, somatic practices, like when I use beforehand, not now, but beforehand, when I felt anger, my initial reaction was to lash out externally. Okay, so it was to shout, to scream, to throw things, to slam stuff. And considering that to now, I'm miles better, 100% better. You know, like I still have room for improvement, as does everybody. You know, all the time. Nobody's perfect, but like I can actually have a conversation with my partner now when I'm really, really annoyed, and be like, I'm really angry right now. I'm experiencing this feeling. This is happening in my body, and I don't try and run away from it. I don't try and lash out or blame it on anyone else. I just say I'm angry. Like I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm not saying it's anyone's fault. I'm just addressing the emotion for what it is straight on. And even this morning, myself and my partner have been having a bit of a difficult conversations recently. Needed, very much needed in relationship, but difficult. And even this morning, you know, I had a difficult conversation. I said, you know, I'm feeling quite a lot of anger right now towards this situation. And we just sat there. We didn't try and change it. Like, and in my head, I was thinking, dude, I'm so proud of myself. I'm so proud of myself that I can say to my partner that I'm angry, and it doesn't have to be this more than what it is. It's Naoki's feeling anger, and that's okay. You know. Whereas before, and then this is probably why it's come up today. I was reflecting on that and reflecting on the times where I didn't used to do that. And when you're saying there about similar to the bullying situation, you know, like why is that person doing that? I'm thinking, okay, why did I lash out? And I think it's other people suppressed my emotions. because I wasn't allowed to express myself in a way. You know, I wasn't allowed to feel the anger, because when I did feel the anger and I was like, I'm angry as a kid, everyone would be like, all right, lock him away, put him in the toilet downstairs, or, you know,
Yeah.
put him in the garden. Well, what do you mean? What? So I can't feel this thing, or this thing isn't allowed to be here, or, you know, it was almost like I was repressed
Yeah.
for feeling angry, you know?
Like I have a very specific memory of that as well, where like I remember kind of as a kid, you kind of you do express your frustrations over kind of very small things that when you get older would make absolutely zero difference to your life, but they matter when you're a kid. And like I can't even remember what the hell I was angry about. I just remember being very angry and kind of throwing my toys out the pram. And this was, I must have been about 3 or 4 when this happened. And I was basically like told to kind of go into a room by myself. It was like the utility room, so it's like cold and like there's loads of negative things that are going on around you that are very subtle, and just being told to like sit on this chair until you calm down. It's like what then find really there's definitely not like a it's definitely not like a coincidence that this happened when I started to really and like embodying like particularly feelings of or embracing feelings of kind of liking myself and self-acceptance. To me was really this sense of owning who I was.
Yeah.
And when I was first really welcoming those feelings in, um I suddenly realized there was a lot of anger there as to how my um how my own masculinity, my own way of showing up in the world had been suppressed because other people around me had effectively told me to do it.
Mm.
And like that came out with that almost that healthy feeling of anger that I hadn't allowed to come out before. And like there are occasional times in my life when I allow emotion to come out to such a strong degree that it inspires me to do something about it.
Yeah.
And like and this kind of rarely happens, but I used to kind of write, and whenever an emotion comes out in a really strong way that I struggle to express in any other format, I will write something about it. And I think for like the first time in my life, I basically wrote a poem about how we'd been suppressed, particularly at the time because dating was a bigger issue, a bigger core issue for me, rather than what I feel like I've expanded beyond that now and focus more on kind of purpose and kind of allowing to live the best quality of life you can. It feels like this is now like a very small part of all of that. But at the time, dating was a major thing for me, and a lot of the kind of things within this poem coming up were based around how my masculinity around like basically essentially like showing that I liked women was basically pressed down and suppressed, and suddenly kind of realizing that a lot of the dating coaches and people that I kind of seen before were effectively part of the issue. They were part of the problem. They were actually to a degree exacerbating and not allowing my self-esteem to fully flourish into what it could be. They were trying to for their own gain, trying to almost keep me at a certain peak of going, okay, no, like you need to buy this course to improve your confidence, and now this course, and now this course, and it's just like, well, actually no, because it's everything you're teaching is still based on the more external results I get, the more confident I am, and it's a crock of shit.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was then being kind of pushed into this poem, which was, I remember specifically it was the beat of No Church in the Wild by
Yeah.
Jay-Z, and I literally was listening to that song because I was as my masculinity was kind of almost revealing itself. I wanted to listen to songs that kind of embodied those feelings, and I was listening to this, and literally I could hear different lyrics as I was listening to it. I was like, God, I just got to write this down.
Oh yeah, that sounds amazing, brother. That sounds like a really good point of self-expression, actually. Poetry is amazing. Poetry, music, all of that. Like I write, I say write music. I wrote a few songs on the guitar, and it usually comes in times of desperate need, like when I really need to get something out or express something that I can't seem to put into words. And then every time I sing that song or I'm there with the guitar and I can play it, I can feel feel the song in my body. Like, that's what's important back to the somatic thing, is feeling the anger, allowing yourself to feel it, not try and fight it or push it away, change it or do anything with it. And this probably ties with acceptance commitment therapy as well, is like, just like, I wrote a song about grief before. I'm really, really struggling with grief. Something happened in October and last year, it just took me on a crazy whirlwind of a journey. Very, very difficult 6 to 8 months, and I cried a hell of a lot. Like, I cried every day for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I was like, I need to feel this, but I can't. Like, crying is great, but I'm not feeling it enough in the body. I'm like, how do I express what I'm feeling? Like, get it down. So I wrote it in a song, and every time I play that song now, it allowed me to process the emotion, allowed me to feel the emotion properly, put it into some form of words, articulate it to myself so I could deeper understand it, and then it just dissipates. The sense of grief dissipated. It still comes back in short, feelings, but I'm like, okay, this is time to sing the song again because I'm feeling this feeling of grief. Yeah, amazing, bro. One thing I did want to talk about, because I'm sure it will definitely be a decent chat, is polyvagal theory.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you explain. Do you want to explain a bit about what polyvagal theory is, and then we can sort of go into this, because
Yeah.
this has helped me loads. This has helped me so much. Like, man, I didn't even know it was called polyvagal theory probably until about 4 years ago, I'd say. And I only come across it because I was actually trying to write a program on erodes and how singing, for me, actually retrained my nervous system to feel safe in certain moments. And it wasn't necessarily the lyrics that made the difference. It was the sound, the humming, this consistent thing that I did that retrained my nervous system. Be like, oh, okay, I'm safe in this moment. And then every time I got anxious, I would sing, and it would literally, within minutes, I would be not anxious. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like that. So I started Googling and obviously come across polyvagal theory. So do you want to explain a bit about what that is?
Yeah. So the whole concept of polyvagal theory ties to explain it as like simplistically as possible. It's the whole idea that the brain doesn't stop at the neck. It kind of goes down through your spinal column and connects to your major organs as well. So your heart, your gut, your pelvis, your kind of sexual center. All these things are connected via this this kind of master key monitoring nerve called the vagus nerve. And what this effectively does is it operates your parasympathetic nervous system and your sympathetic nervous system. So it kind of is the key that dials your entire body, your entire nervous system between freeze state, fight and flight state, and rest and digest state. And then there are higher states above that. So you've got flow state, and then technically, like, if you want to go if you're kind of really dedicated to the cause, then you've got enlightenment, or like your monk state somewhere above that. But it basically kind of monitors your nervous system in reality, and it ties into what I find kind of beautiful about it is it really kind of ties into, and for me it models all these kind of older kind of ancient models as to like how emotional energy would move through the body. So the kind of start of meditation I started doing with embodiment was to feel down into the chest and create a sense of opening there, then feel into the gut, create a sense of opening there, feel into the pelvis, create an opening there, and then feel down through my legs to create a sense of grounding. And at each point, so in your chest, in your stomach, in your pelvis, in your kind of perineum, your root, there's a place where all your neurons will kind of bundle together, and that's where the expression of your gut brain or your second brain comes from, because it's the second largest bundle of neurons in your body next to your brain. And all of this is kind of monitoring not just physical sensations of fear, not just kind of your heart rate, the ability for you to digest, and then also your it ties into, when it goes into your hips, your sexual can I call it? Yeah, sexual performance is probably the best way I can state it as. Like, it's not just kind of controlling that, it's helping you monitor feelings and emotions that kind of arise around that as well. So when you're in a state of fight and flight, for example, like normally the first thing that will happen is your gut will tighten, like the muscles around this area will essentially kind of clamp together because it's the weakest area of the body. It's not guarded by a rib cage or bones or anything like that. It's the most vulnerable, so it tightens itself up. And then that causes this kind of cascade of tightness to then move to the rest of your body as well. So it then causes everything to kind of lock up. And that can happen to a degree where you can you can be walking around with chronic tension or kind of really suppressed emotions which cause that chronic tension. And because you've been doing it for so long, you won't actually know how tense you are. And what you're looking at doing with any polyvagal skill is you're bringing the entire nervous system out of that chronic state of fight and flight, or sometimes even freeze state. It's kind of really dropped that low up into this back into this state of rest and digest. So you are effectively allowing yourself to relax. You're allowing yourself to be able to socialize. You're allowing yourself to be able to communicate with those around you from a place of safety rather than from a space of fear.
When you're talking about that, so I keep writing down some little notes that I can refer back to. When you're talking there about like this chronic state of like dysregulation, basically the fear, whatever it might be, that was me to a T, and somewhat technically still is. As I mentioned before, like the improvements I've made over the last 10 years has been astronomical. Like, I can't even fathom the life that I was living before. It's so far removed from the life I'm living now. That doesn't mean my life's perfect. And I often talk about this to people. People are like, oh, how have you got over it? I'm like, whoa, I'm not fully over it. I'm trying my hardest. Like, I still have issues myself. One of them is this state of chronic stress, basically. I find, like, I've got severe ADHD. So there's like a very fine line between like, is my mind overthinking or am I actually just dysregulated, and sort of like differentiating between this actual medical issue that I have, or is it this from trauma? Recently, that's been, I'd say the last 3 years, this has been my main focus is differentiating between ADHD and nervous system dysregulation, and learning tools to really, really focus on the nervous system dysregulation. So if it's not working, it's because it's probably the ADHD. And then becoming aware of that is then my ability to go, okay, well, that's just what's going to happen right now, and that's okay too, and sort of come back to the acceptance and commitment. The polyvagal thing, if I reflect back, so before I joined the military, I got super addicted to drugs and to try and escape my reality, basically, because my reality was so shit. I was so dysregulated. My life was terrible. Suicidal ideation every day, anxiety, panic attacks every day. So I started taking dissociative drugs. And within that, I found a lot of peace because it relaxed my nervous system properly. Like, I could take 3 or 4 diazepam and I would be calm. And then when reality started kicking back in because the diazepam was wearing off, I was like, whoa, nah, this is too much, take some more. So fast forward a few years, I realized I felt threatened the whole time. I couldn't walk into a major supermarket, Morrison's, Asda, Tesco, without scanning every single person that was looking at me for a threat, because I thought, like, okay, why is he looking at me? Oh, he's looked at me for 6 seconds. Is that too much? I was so dysregulated. And through shamanism, I started working with mestizo shamans and Shipibo shamans from the Amazon jungle. And I started learning Icaros. And through this learning of Icaros, I then realized that when I would sing, because like my teacher would say, in the moment that you feel this emotion, you need to sing. So, okay. So this emotion would come up for me. Like, let's say I'm walking in Morrison's and I'm like, okay, why is that person looking at me? Okay, like, dysregulated, like nervous, I'm twitching, like it's horrible. Even thinking back to that moment, I'm like, oh, it makes me cringe because it's like, how did I live, I would sing. I would just start singing an Icaro. So then, like, what I realized was me singing this Icaro would then bring me back to my body, but also relax me in a way that nothing else did. So I was like, okay, there's something in the singing. I don't know what it is in there, but I need to figure it out. So I started looking at a more of a esoteric concepts of like the Icaro itself being this magical healing tool, which the words mattered, and that sort of helped for a bit. But again, it didn't sit with me correctly. As I then went deeper into it, I started doing my own research, and over the last few years, I'd say 4 years, I come across vagal toning. So vagal toning is an aspect of polyvagal theory that you basically hum or sing yourself to vibrate your vagus nerve, to teach it that and to relax it. So then in the moment that you feel unsafe or a threat, you can sing yourself back to relaxation. So I was like, holy shit, this is the thing. This is the fucking thing that I've been doing. And I was just like, it just clicked, and I was like, oh my God, I need to research this now so much. So I really went deep into polyvagal theory and mainly vagal toning, because that's what I found worked for me. So the last few years, I'd say the last 3 years, I've really just been thinking about, okay, what other ways can I relax the nervous system? What other ways can I use polyvagal theory to gather, to gain, to show my body that it's safe the whole time, and it's been a journey over the last 3 or 4 years, seriously. But man, the improvements I've made now, like, I wouldn't say, people say, "Oh, you're so nihilistic," because I just say I don't care now. But it's not I don't care. It's just that
I feel
it doesn't.
like it goes back to what I was saying before, where like I found like people who are like below a certain like emotional threshold view that phrase completely differently to people who kind of get it, if that makes sense. Like people
Yeah,
who've gone
yeah,
through that self-acceptance kind of nervous system kind of relaxation kind of shift view that phrase of I just don't care anymore as a real kind of
negative.
I can make yeah, like it's like they're like, oh no, that's a bad thing. It's like, no, it's not.
Mm.
You can say whatever the fuck you want to me, and I can still make space for you. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it. That is literally it. It's yeah. The polyvagal theory, or the vagal toning. Man, it saved my life. It literally saved my life. Like when I started shamanism like 10 years ago now, 10 years this year probably, and I've probably been singing Icaros for maybe about 7, 8 years now. And the journey I've had with vagal toning is second to none. It's up there with the best thing I've ever figured out about myself. Like, yeah, I had a little bout of psychosis before, and the one thing that brought me back was fucking singing Icaros, man. And I just was like, out of all the things that you could have done and took or spoken to, the one thing that saved me, the one thing that grounded me back into my body was fucking singing. And I was just like, oh, it just felt so good knowing that now I have this tool in my arsenal that at any point, and sorry, I've got all these things going on in my head, like ding ding ding, like no one's firing, but yeah, it is. Do you think when I'm like, say, on a stage or I'm doing a talk, if I find myself getting anxious, nervous, whatever, and I say, okay, boys, we're gonna take a minute. We're gonna take a minute together, and we're gonna hum, or we're gonna sing, or we're gonna do breaths. That also gives me the opportunity to
yeah,
take control again. To like be like, whoa, okay, this is okay, everything's fine. Let's relax the nervous system. So we're gonna take 3 deep breaths and say om. Like they can say om, even just that om. What it can be any noise. It could be ah ooh ee ding dong dang. The noise doesn't matter.
yeah,
It's the vibration of the vagus nerve that matters. So and when I do this, I feel so relaxed. I almost feel, I don't mean this from an egotistical perspective, but I almost feel like invincible. I'm like there's nothing that I can't do now, because I can just relax myself enough that I can just do the thing anyway. Even if beforehand I would have had a panic attack doing it, or talk myself out of it, or back to the imposter syndrome thing, think that I'm not worthy enough to do this call or to do this talk, and then I'll get panicked like, why am I even doing this? Like, who am I to tell these people? Well, I can do it because I'm implementing this tool that actually works every day for me. What's your favorite thing about vagal toning? Polyvagal theory.
like
How has it showed up in your life?
like with me, it was all to do with like subcommunication, if that makes sense. Uh I would train my body to kind of like create these kind of windows or these spaces around different areas. So like I could create a space around my heart or create a space around my gut, around my pelvis. But then with whenever I was in any kind of social situation, which a lot of like my anxieties or kind of previous issues revolve around social anxiety. So for me, this was like an absolute game changer. I would imagine a beam coming out from my chest or from my stomach or from my pelvis and connecting with the person in front of me. And that basically caused again that almost immediate feeling of relaxation in that particular area. And it was almost this idea of like, well, if I can create the beam between this person, then it's going to cause this area to relax. And if I can't do it, then, well, what am I not allowing myself to feel? Can I make space for that? Can I create more space, more opening? And it's almost like the larger I can get that window, the kind of stronger that kind of beam, that kind of sense of connection became. And like it really was a sense of kind of subcommunication connection, where I could almost instinctively know what the other person was thinking before they said it.
Yeah.
And like it kind of when I kind of recognized that this was, I suppose, part of the same school of polyvagal theory, it suddenly made sense, because it's like, oh yeah, of course, because this is like rest and digest, or the other word for that state is social engagement. And it's allowing me to drop into a place where I'm no longer just communicating with this part. Like the entire body is also kind of joining in with this. And I started to kind of train it into a place where it was muscle memory, and I could just like send this kind of connection. And in that state, I'm not worried about like in this like current conversation, I'm not worried about what you personally think of me. There's just this kind of sense of connection there. And it allows you to be incredibly spontaneous in how you show up verbally and how you show up socially, and that kind of then very easily then correlates to business, to work, to your kind of social and like intimate relationships. Like you're suddenly very spontaneous with how you show up in conversation. You're not trying to say anything or do anything kind of differently. It's like they will say something and then you answer. It's like if you kind of ask me a question, I'm not thinking, oh, what does that question mean? Like, is it a verb? Is it a noun? Is it an adjective? Like, no, I'm not thinking externally. I'm kind of feeling what your question means to me, then I answer. And it was like that concept, but on steroids. Like you could hear the layers behind the question, or more like you could physically feel the layers behind the question. That's probably a better way of phrasing it. So the whole embodiment part, and then the polyvagal kind of thing was like key for that, where I was feeling down into the body and almost having a conversation with people through my heart or through my gut or like through my pelvis, depending what my kind of intention was.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the vagus nerve. Like, for anyone that doesn't know what it looks like, it's imagine like the roads leading out of Rome. That's where I almost describe it. It's like all the roads leaving out of Rome, and it comes at each side of your neck, and it just goes over all your organs, all the way to your coccyx, down to the root down there, and your groin and stuff. And I almost when I'm thinking about it, or like I sing every day now. I have to, right? It's literally a part of my daily routine. Whether it be a full 20-minute Icaro that I learned in the Amazon jungle, or whether it be a 2-minute song that I just make up on the spot because that's what I feel like I need in the moment. Sometimes it's with a drum, sometimes without a drum, sometimes with a guitar, without a guitar, sometimes it's just on the sofa, sometimes it's making tea, whatever it is. I find out really when I sit with it and tune into it and sort of like think about what's happening in my body and the sensations while I sing this song, it's almost like a neuron. Like the way that I see neurons is like ding, 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 like this. It's almost like a neuron of relaxation for me. It's like it comes like down the vagus nerve and it's like ding, 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 like all over the body. Like I can feel it. Like literally, I can feel it. I can't describe exactly what the sensation is. It's almost like a tingling sensation of like.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It's like it's like when And I find, like, for me, it's the both the kind of hardest part, but the most enjoyable part of like my practice is teaching people to get out of here and kind of into here. And they're always waiting for like that analytical description of like, okay, what like like what feeling are you not allowing yourself to feel? What's behind this? And then you're going down through the body and you're kind of creating these um almost like these vagal openings like through each center. And like you're trying to like describe the feeling and you can't. So like the way I actually teach it, especially that kind of that sub communication one, is because like that phrase that only 10% of what we say is verbal, the rest is non-verbal, and like that other 90%, most of that is actually not even your tone. It's literally how your nervous system is communicating with the other nervous system. So if you imagine before we even developed language, so when we were kind of still primates, we were still able to communicate. And
Yeah.
you can actually feel this very subtly. Like if you walk into a room with someone who is anxious, you don't need that person to tell you that they're anxious. You physically feel it.
Yeah.
Your body will respond accordingly. Your body will pick up that person is in a state of threat, and your body will simultaneously go into threat just in case there is an invisible bear in the corner. Like it,
Yeah.
it's so instinctive that you will do it automatically. So when I'm training other people's nervous systems to kind of wake up, we'll use that kind of beam technique, and I'll typically do like a meditation before where I'm getting them to imagine that they're creating space on each area. So imagine that their chest is opening up, their stomach's opening up, their pelvis is opening up, and you're creating space around anything that's just uncomfortable there. And because your emotions don't really operate in terms of good or bad, they operate in terms of expansion and contraction. So, like, imagine you've got all these kind of contracting, these kind of tense emotions within you. You've got fear, you've got doubt, you've got anger, you've got shame. These are kind of emotions that are getting your body to do that. And when you create space around them, just like imagine water hitting a dam and you create a hole in that dam, the water's immediately going to go out because it's just a law of physics. So when you're doing that acceptance commitment therapy work and you're creating space around those kind of tense emotions, they automatically go out because they're creating pressure. So they leave. And then if you do that with an expansive emotion like love or acceptance or courage, you create space around it. It just gets bigger because again, that's how the physics of that emotion works. And to kind of bring the Latin part into that, like the word emotion means energy in motion. So what direction is that emotion going in? And with when I'm training people with that kind of polyvagal technique, you're creating that sense of opening. So now you know that they can do it. They can create a feeling of relaxation that moves down the body. And then I want to bring in a little bit of tension. I want to bring in a little bit of stress to the nervous system. So I basically do that by playing around with personal space. So I kind of move into that person's space or that frame, and that their body automatically tenses back up again. And I kind of go, can you remember that previous state? And you allow it to relax. And you're taking it from what is just a meditation practice to suddenly something that they can do on the fly. So I'm kind of training that person to, okay, imagine there's a beam between you and me and our hearts. Imagine there's a beam between you and me and our stomachs, and that can just connect. And the closer I get, I want you to keep that connection. I want you to keep that feeling of relaxation. And you're basically training the body to open up under a sense of tension rather than kind of shut down. Which, when you're doing that as a little technique, it seems fairly easy, it seems fine, but then you start to recognize the implications of that. If you can allow yourself to be open in any kind of stressful situation, that's massive implications in your relationships, in business, in work, in all these other settings where life is going to throw stress at you, it's going to throw tension at you. And although I kind of start this technique where you're kind of doing it from person to person, eventually you get to a point where you send it out into the environment around you, which is like you're creating this intimate relationship with reality itself, which is where a lot of the sort of manifestation things come from, where it's like, okay, if I can send this out to life, then it's got my back. I might not necessarily get the thing that I want, but things are going to be okay. And that's kind of what you're training into your nervous system, that no matter what life throws at you, it's on your side, so you're going to be okay.
So very similar actually to what I somewhat did this morning with my stepson. So he's currently got a cold, and he's got a football match today, his first football match of the season. He is a bit nervous, I think, because he's like, first one back, people are going to be watching, and maybe he was like, I'm not going to play as good because I'm not very well, I've got this cold and stuff. I somewhat did like a bit of a visualization with him. So I said, if you was to listen to one song right now and it was to alleviate the feelings that you're feeling, what would that song be? He goes, I don't know. So I say, if you were to know and you was able to tell me, what would you say? And he said, Eminem something. So I was like, okay, so put on Eminem. I put it on the Alexa and I put it on volume 10. So this fucking thing, like boom, boom. And he's there like bopping his head. And I said, okay, close your eyes. Or he's eating a bacon sandwich, right? I was like, okay, close your eyes. He's like, close his eyes. I was like, I want you to imagine yourself and see yourself scoring a goal today. I want to imagine yourself running down the wing and how good that feeling is going to feel when you're running down the wing. And also notice that you still have a cold.
Yeah.
But imagine the feeling of, and like, so that creating the space of like, wow, look at this amazing thing that's going to happen. Oh, but you still have a cold. And it's like, oh, but it's okay. It's okay to do that. And I said, look, when I'm going for these runs, like when I'm doing marathons or ultras or, these really difficult physical challenges, I'm not always in the zone. I'm not like the whole time previous to it happening. I'm not like thinking, I'm maybe nervous, I'm maybe anxious, I'm whatever. These feelings are coming up for me. But then when it's my time to do the thing, whether that be talking on stage, whether that be doing an ultra marathon, whether that be having a difficult conversation with my partner, whether that be getting ready for the podcast and people seeing me talk about things that I'm quite close to my heart, and that little bit of, oh, should I be talking? Okay, now's the time to create that space. Now's the time to, okay, let's create some space around that. Let's implement something that I know is going to make me feel safe, i.e. a song or listening to music. Let's create that space. Let's put a bit of tension in there because I'm going to have to do it anyway. It's inevitable unless I just hide and retreat for the rest of my life and never do anything that I ever want to do because I'm scared to do it. I did this exercise with him, and he said, oh, do you want a drink to take with you? I'll go to, shall we get you a drink? So I went and bought him a Lucozade, which he never has, but and he was buzzing. He's like good to go now for the game. He's like his full relationship with the thing that he was had a different. His relationship this morning was not the relationship he left with outside the door to go play this game in. And that's just how quick it can work. That's how quick it can work when you create space. You feel safe in that environment. You realize it's not as necessarily what the story you're telling yourself is. Like, yeah, it's amazing, man. It's so amazing. Super, super simple. Very, very short. It's probably speaks of 10, 20 minutes maybe, and it was almost instant. Like, you could see it in him. But back to what I was saying there about feeling the tension, feeling the stress or threat in the room when you walk in. Like, I felt it relaxing him too. I felt it relaxed. And it was just so amazing to see that he's like now going in there thinking, I've got this, I can do this, or I can accomplish this task, or I can go on stage, or I can go into these social situations that once scared me. I can go on that date with that girl that I find pretty, whatever it might be. It's super, super quick.
And I think, the more, like, because it's like, it's really tied into that embodiment and the polyvagal kind of system. It's muscle memory. It literally, the more things you learn to apply it to, the faster you can do it. Like, I do it each evening as like a 20-minute meditation, just learning how to create space around like the feelings of my chest, the feelings of my stomach, feelings of my pelvis, and kind of down into the root. I'm always kind of constantly peeling back the layers, so to speak, because at no point do I think I'm arrogant enough to think that I've reached some state of enlightenment. It's like, no, there's still stuff there. There's still more things that I'm more likely than not that I've gathered up in the 30 years I've been alive that I'm not allowing myself to feel. So kind of what's there, what can I create even more space for and even more space for. So I'm doing that almost like as a like a kind of a flushing exercise, or like a kind of a reset exercise, because there's going to be stuff that comes up throughout the day that I'm just not aware of. But in general, like, you're kind of training it to the point where when stuff does come up in the moment, you can use the same skill, the same technique, and it's like you kind of say, it's actually kind of instant. It just happens.
Yeah,
Which
very, very.
that surprised me as well the first time I did it, because there was this really big expectation beforehand that whenever you're doing any exercise like this, it takes a long time. Like, it'll take ages to rewiring your entire nervous system. It's gonna take ages. And it's like, well, actually, no. You learn how to create space around one thing. It almost causes this kind of massive cascade. And like, where I really focus in on are like those previous things I was talking about before, the feelings of where do you not feel safe, where do you not feel loved, where do you not feel like you're enough. And it's like, because these are really the primary needs that we will create a lot of our kind of compensations around. Once we start to kind of really nail those, so you can create a feeling of love from within, a feeling of safety from within, a feeling of value and being enough from within, the like cascade this has on the rest of your life is massive. Like, suddenly the things that you were doing before to try to garner this from the external world, you don't need to do anymore. So that saves up a ton of energy that you're no longer wasting. It then moves into your physical health, your mental health. That improves because your body's not burning up all this energy to try to compensate for things it doesn't need. And then that changes the way you then view your environment. And then in theory, it just kind of loops around and around, where you continually create more and more and more space and find even more feelings of safety, more feelings of love, more feelings of value within yourself.
Sorry, my dog was snoring there. I don't know if you heard that, but my dog was like.
A little bit. Oh, what's that?
Yeah, so my dog was full on snoring, so I was like trying to wake her up, but I was like shaking her arm and she just didn't move. Yeah, creating space, but it's super important. And I also say as well, like I often talk to my clients about like this idea of like a capacity issue. When people are like trying to take so much on or something, it's usually a capacity issue. There's only so much of you that you can give, that you can spare, that you can share. So creating space, like energetically or visually around this situation, but also physically around this situation. Like if, for example, I know that I'm going to go do a talk or something on mental health, like I will not be working the day before. There's no way, because I need to prepare myself physically to do this thing that is going to cause me some stress. It's going to be in an environment where it's going to make me feel slightly dysregulated. So I need to know that I've put these things physically in place. I've created the space around the environment. So I'm like, okay, I feel safe enough that I can go and then smash this now, because I'm not going to be stressed for work and then have only 2 hours to think about if I need to catch this flight and then do this. And it's like a knock-on effect, So creating space is great as well, visually, emotionally, energetically, as well as physically, if that's what you need as well. I feel like, yeah, creating space, beautiful little thing. One thing I did want to speak about too, something that like as I'm sort of increasing my so basically, like, before recent years, I've sort of only ever worked with men that are really, really super struggling. A lot of anxiety, depression, addiction issues, suicidal ideation. People from backgrounds usually from council estates. That's just where I was born, so people sort of resonate with me, like when they come from that area too. They're like, oh man, like, if this guy can do it, we can do it, sort of thing. Ex-military as well, so the typical sort of societal view on hyper masculine men, those are the type of people that usually come to me. Recently, since I set up the business properly, is I've actually been going to more of a corporate setting, actually, and really speaking to corporate businesses. A completely new environment for me, something that freaks me the fuck out. Like, why would Mr. Naoki Nayati be able to go to this corporate setting and talk about something? And as obviously I've been developing my practice over the last however many years, like my journey, obviously my prices increase. The more I learn, the more people demand or would like something that I offer, I increase the price, you know. Because I can't do everything. I can't help everybody, unfortunately. We do have things like bands for different people. So like we have free stuff. So every week we meet for free on a Tuesday, free of charge from 7 to 8:30. We then also have like entry level retreats, which are like just talks, days we would get together, maybe go for a fire or a hike for like 20 to 50 quid. Then you have like large retreats, which are, anywhere from 550, depends on what height, it depends on what retreat is, but anywhere from 550 to, I think, Everest Base Camp is like 3.5K, you know. So anywhere from there to there. And then recently, I've just started getting into the corporate business talks and stuff, doing like keynote speaking, and my price for that has obviously gone up. And the imposter syndrome that I feel during that time is like, what the
huge.
fuck?
Yeah,
Huge. I've never felt it in my life. I've never felt really imposter syndrome ever, like in my life. Because I just think, why wouldn't I be doing that? Like, everything that I do, I give 100%. I don't leave anything to chance. Like, I would drop other things, like everything, just to be really good at this one thing. Then when I get really good at one thing, then I'll drop it all to go in this next thing. So I like being good at what I do. I don't like just dipping my toe in once or twice a week and thinking, oh yeah, that'll be enough, because it's not enough in my eyes. If I'm going to do something, I want to do it because I want to be the best that I could possibly be at the thing. And then once I'm great at it, then I'm like, okay, next, what else can I do? You know, I'll even maybe stick with it, but at least then I'm up to a level that I feel is substantial for me. But yeah, the charging the money for situ and the imposter syndrome that I'm feeling now is crazy for these corporate talks, man. Crazy.
Yeah,
What?
and like I think that's one of the the beautiful thing of like exploring, particularly kind of self-esteem is looking from where I, looking at kind of from where I started and like now where I'm where I'm going, where I'm looking at, like to kind of literally start from the place of, oh, I just want to get, I just want a date, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
I just want to meet a pretty girl and like have a kind of great relationship. To suddenly kind of recognizing, oh no, it doesn't just apply here. It applies to money. It applies to your diet. It applies to the kind of the areas and the industries that you kind of recognize that you can start working in. And like one of the especially on that particular area of kind of moving from your own perception, you think that you're moving from one space into another, but in reality you're not. You're staying in the same space. Those people are coming to you. And I recognized this with a very similar situation where I went from working with the NHS, and you got a lot of people who have been in like that very similar kind of very difficult, struggling kind of face situation. They couldn't afford private healthcare. They couldn't afford kind of private coach or anything like that. And then I got a role as a vocational rehab coach, and it was working with people who were kind of experiencing chronic stress, burnout, and sometimes experiencing really bad physical illnesses like cancer that basically kind of took them off work, and they were all kind of looking to get back into work. And the people I was working with on these calls were like vice president of so and so bank, or like the head of risk management in Canary Wharf, or like things like people who naturally you got massive imposter syndrome around, because you were just kind of there on the other side of the call or whatever, kind of thinking, okay, this person like probably has a 1 in front of my salary. What can I do that can really kind of get this person to kind of to the place that they want when their standard is so high? And then slowly over time of like working with these people, I started to realize that the problems that they had, or like the baseline of the problem that they had, was exactly the same as the people I was working with in the NHS. And regardless of who I was working with, I was good at what I did. I knew I was good at what I did. And what I actually recognized is almost because they were in a state of very high standards, holding themselves to accountability, and that's why they got to the positions they got in. They would actually react even better to what I was saying, because there wouldn't be as many barriers for them to overcome. like if you told them to do something, they did it. And then if they wanted to tweak it in a particular way, they'd work with you with that and kind of really show, like they'd show up even more fully.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh wow, actually I'm still like what I'm doing is still equally as valuable, because at the end of the day I'm not dealing with these people in this category or these people in this category. I'm just dealing with people, and I'm very good at that.
Yeah.
And then there was a sense of encouragement where, like, suddenly if I said to do something, they'd go like, yeah, no, that sounds really good. I'm gonna go do this. I really like working with you. And it's like, wow, okay. So yeah, I think naturally that imposter syndrome kind of hits us not because of what we're doing is actually different, but just because we perceive it as something new, we perceive it as something different. And there's kind of initial, like you kind of spoke a bit before about that idea of a container. It's like that's you stepping into that new container, and
Yeah.
you're going to have to allow yourself to create a bit of space in that new container to not fizzle out. And it's that looking at it and changing your perception around it to make you realize that you're not taking this massive leap, you're just taking a small leap in a different direction, or like you're not kind of going like this, you're just kind of going like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's going to feel uncomfortable because you're stepping outside your comfort zone, but
Yeah.
you're not actually stepping outside your comfort zone as much as you think you are.
Yes. That point that you made there about like you're actually just doing the same thing. I'm like, fuck yeah, I am. Like, I'm not actually doing anything different.
But like all your courses, all the work, all the stuff that you're saying, it's like it's going to be identical to what you were doing before.
Identical, literally. Yeah.
It's just the way they will take it on board, because they're in, like, that's their environment.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
they'll like, we all have our way of viewing the world, so they will view what you say differently, but you don't need to change it.
Don't need to change it, yeah, at all. And like anytime that, so like the talk that I'm doing for, got two things coming up. So one of them is at a company, security company, basically just doing a talk on personal development, little tools that I use to develop aspects of myself. Probably talk about nervous system regulation, talk about somatic practices, talk about this idea of lack of safety, and how one can sort of gain safety, that sort of stuff. And then the second one is Men's Mental Health Day. So I'm going to be doing a talk about my own journey, coming from like attempted suicides, drug addiction, to now helping men, and obviously running a global expedition company with psychotherapeutic practices sort of ingrained in there, and sort of how I come about that. So I'm basically just talking about my life anyway, and how, you know, the sort of shit and struggles that, you know, you go through as an addict, to then, you know, flipping your life around and realizing, you know, I do have a purpose on planet Earth, and how to gain that purpose as well. You know, like I often talk about meaning and purpose like quite a bit. You know, I'm currently writing out a current program now about meaning and purpose. It's going to be like 4 weeks long, about how to find meaning, how to find purpose. Because like I just see so many men that are just lost, like lost like me. You know, like I was lost, and sort of really looked at the framework of what meaning and purpose is and how to acquire them. You know, yeah. One thing that you mentioned earlier, actually, that is related, I find, to meaning and purpose is the flow state. Like, I believe that has got to have some. You've got to have that in your life. You've got to, like, whether that be through sport or whether that be through reading a book. It doesn't matter what it is. You've got to find where your flow state sort of resides. You know, like that's pinnacle of life for me. Like I do. Obviously, I mentioned before we come on the call, I do jiu-jitsu and MMA. I fucking love it, boys. I thrive on it. It's a moment where time just don't exist. Like it can go. I start the session and then the session's over. I'm like, oh, that was fucking good. Then what a waste of time. An hour's gone, an hour and a half's gone, and I've done nothing. Like obviously I've done everything, but I was like, I feel like I've just arrived and we're going home. You know, that's how quick it goes because it's the time doesn't exist. You know. Yeah. 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 I completely agree. Completely agree. Martial arts has changed my life pretty much. Jiu-jitsu, MMA, mainly jiu-jitsu now, but just get into this flow state. Time goes so quick. I feel like I'm at the pinnacle of human existence during that time. I get the same with running as well. Actually, like I've been doing a lot of running recently. Got a marathon in 3 weeks, which I've not trained for at all. So I started training yesterday for that, which is going to be absolutely terrible on the day. But I know for a fact when I start running, I'm just going to get in the flow state, and I just know it's all just going to work out. It is the pinnacle of human experience for me. That so, and I'm curious of the time. I'm going to ask you 2 questions before we finish up. But before I ask those questions, is there anything else that you would like to say to the podcast before I ask you those 2 questions? Yeah, thanks, brother. Appreciate you coming, man. It's been it's been a great chat. It has. So yeah, 2 questions is the first question is, what is your favorite tool like to give? So if someone was going to come to you, what is the most common tool, or what is your favorite tool to give people that they can listen on this podcast, they can take away this tool and they can implement it in their lives, and it will benefit them somehow? Man, that sounds really beautiful, actually. What I can do is, obviously you've sent me all the details anyway, so all the details to find Ben and to contact Ben are going to be in the description on Spotify and on YouTube. So if you just go to the links in the description, you'll find his website, his email address. So yeah, if you go on there, all this sort of stuff will be available. And last but not least, Ben, do you have anyone that you think would be great for this podcast that you could put me in touch with, so we can have a chat about men's mental health? And if not to worry. It can be man or woman, by the way. It doesn't have to be just a man. It can be man or woman. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, let's just drop me a message after all is well. And yeah, amazing. Thanks, Ben. Thanks ever so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a really amazing chat, and things that have been, super close to my heart too. Like sometimes when I talk to people, like the thing that they offer isn't something that I've ever had to go through or need. Whereas the things that you're talking about are things that are like very, very close to me, to my heart, to my experience, and to my journey in life. So yeah, thanks so much for all the work you do, brother. Thanks for everything, and yeah, we'll definitely get you on the podcast again, and we'll talk a bit more about some other topics. So thanks ever so much for coming, brother, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye bye.